need to invest in that with God. Our relationship with God is like any other relationship. A husband and wife that don't put in their relationship, a father and son, a mother and a daughter, two friends. If you don't invest in the relationship will break down and decompose. This week we're learning Parashat Korach, and right from the beginning of the Parashat we see that Korach had a personal issue with his cousin Moses. And Korach, by the way, was a genius of a man, a very powerful man, a very rich man, a very popular individual at the same time. And he was very, very wise, because he knew that if he would wage war against all popular Moses, it wouldn't come to fruition. But that was his goal. So as we see from the beginning of this Torah portion, he didn't attack Moses at first. He started with attacking Aaron's position. We're going to read the verses. We're going to analyze exactly what's going on over here. And we'll see how, even though he started off by attacking Aaron's position, at the end, the greed got to him, and he was actually going to try to elect himself amongst Bnei Israel to take Moshe Rabbeinu's very own position. We're starting in chapter 16, verse 1. The Torah tells us, Vayikach Korach, Korach comes and takes, and it's a terminology of coming and taking out of greed, making a fight. Who was Korach, the son of Yitzhar, ben Kehat, ben Levi? So he's coming. Number one man is Korach. Next is Vidatan va'Aviram. Datan and Aviram, who were the children of Eliav, Ve'on ben Pelet b'nei Reuven, with their group of men, group of 250 men. Next verse, verse 2. Vayakumu lifnei Moshe, they get up in front of Moses, Va'anashim b'nei Israel, ha'mishu matayim. So then, along with their, so who is it? It's Korach, Datan, Aviram, and On. That's 4. Plus another 250 men. All get up in front of Moses, and obviously it wasn't a quiet meeting. It was definitely the show of the day. They get up in front of Moses and they tell him, in front of Nisiyeh Eda Kiriyeh Moed Anshe Shem, verse 3, Vayikalu an Moshe ve'al Aaron. They come on top of Moses and Aaron, Vayomru alehem, and they tell them, Rav lachem ki chol ha'eda kulam kedoshim uftocham Hashem, u'madua titnasu al kehal Hashem. It's too much. You're taking too much for yourselves. Rav lachem. Why are you elevating and exalting yourselves, you and Aaron, over the rest of the nation? The whole nation is holy. The whole nation is special. Rashi comments on the idea of Korach saying, Umadua titnasihu al kal Hashem. Why are you elevating yourselves above the rest of the nation? Rashi says, and I quote, Umadua titnasihu, why are you elevating yourselves? Im lakachta ata malchut, if you took for yourself kingship, lo haya lecha levared leachicha keuna, you shouldn't have chosen and set aside the priesthood for your brother Moshe. There's too much nepotism going on. You're keeping it too close to home. Something seems unfair. So now we look at Korach. His first claim was not against Moses. His claim was against Aaron. You took the kingship for yourself, the leadership. You took the priesthood and you gave it to your brother. Who else would you give it to? Obviously, favoritism. And this is what Korach's claim was. But where is he coming from? Was he a loony? Was he cuckoo? Or was he coming from a certain valid argument? So, our commentaries tell us he was coming from a seemingly valid argument. We'll soon disprove it, but let's understand his side of the story. His side of the story is as follows. Yaakov had 12 sons. One of those sons were none other than Levi. Levi himself had a couple children, and out of them, there was Kehat. Kehat was the father of Amram. Now, Kehat did not only have Amram, Kehat had 4 children. Okay? Amram, Yitzhar, Chevron, and Uziel. So these were the children of Kehat, which in essence were the grandchildren of Levi and the great-grandchildren of Yaakov. These 4 sons, the eldest was Amram, and Amram, we know who his 3 children were: Miriam, Aaron, Moshe. The next brother, Yitzhar, his son was Korach. So Korach now looks and says, one second, it can't all be going to the first son, it can't all go to Amram's family, we need to share it. But he kept shut. He kept it to himself. He was bearing this hard feelings until it came time to elect princes for each family of the Levi'im. And when it came to time for Moses to announce who the prince of the family of Kehat was, Korach was waiting. Okay, maybe it's me. Miriam got her share. Moshe got his share. Aaron got his share. Who's the next cousin? Who's next in seniority? None other than me, Korach says. But who did Moses come out and say it was? No. It was Eltzafan ben Uziel. You know who Eltzafan was? Eltzafan was the son of Uziel, who was the most baby brother from Amram, right? It was Amram, Yitzhar, Hebron, and then Eltzafan. And then Uziel. Eltzafan was the baby cousin. It's like Moses, the way Korach looked at it is, Moses overlooked me intentionally and was looking for the weakest link to elect as the prince for our family tribe. And now he took it to heart. He said, now this is a game with no rules. Moses is making it up himself. And then he waged a rebellion. That's what our commentaries tell us. The Zera Shimshon takes a deeper look at this verse, and specifically Rashi's interpretation, and it gives us another look to strengthen this concept, but another look at what really ticked off Korach to bring him to wage this rebellion. He says, look at the terminology Rashi uses. He says, Im lakachta atal malchut, if you took for yourself, Moses, the kingship, the rulership and leadership, lo haya lecha levarer leachicha keuna. You should have not chosen and set aside for your brother the keuna, the priesthood. He says, what's the difference of verbiage going on over here? It's talking lekicha, means to take for kingship. And then when it comes to kehuna, for priesthood, it's birur, which means to set aside and to choose. The Zera Shimshon says, keep it the same. Lakachta, and then lakachta. Or birarta, ubirer. But why the difference of verbs? And we understand that the Hebrew vernacular is very rich, very specific. And now his question is, why is Rashi changing verbs on us for deciding when Moses, look how deep it is, when Moses is taking the kingship for himself and giving for his brother the priesthood? He answers by telling us the difference between royalty and kingship and priesthood. Royalty is something which we all know does, and the intention of royalty is to pass from parent to child, from father to son, and that's how the princes and princesses are born, and that's the way the royal family is supposed to continue. However, if the heir to the throne is not befitting of the position he's supposed to fit into, or she is supposed to fit into, she doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He will not be the next king, even though he is the prince, if he's not charismatic, if he doesn't display leadership skills, if he's not a good man, a popular man, someone who's doing the right thing, people who can read and feel confidence in. So although the intention of royalty is to pass on from generation to generation, it doesn't happen automatically. The prince, the heir to the throne, has to work hard to gain the position he was born into. However, priesthood is different. Priesthood is regardless in how charismatic you are or how you act or what you do, it transmits automatically from parent to child. And so is with Kohanim. Doesn't matter if you fit the position or not, it inherently becomes part of who you are because of your very birthright. And now the Zera Shimshon says, look at the dichotomy between royalty and priesthood. And he says, this is exactly what Korach's issue with Moshe's actions were. What did he say? He said, you took for yourself lakachta. You took for yourself kingship and leadership. You deserve it, Moses. God chose you. You're displaying your leadership skills, your humility, your charisma. You're doing it. I'll give you that. But why did you not take your brother as a Kohen, but how come did you choose your brother as Kohen? Why did you give him the gift of priesthood that not only him, but his children and his descendants forevermore will automatically be eligible to be priests with nothing to prove or to work for or to do for it? His problem was started, as we said, with Aaron. How come does Aaron get such a blessing that regardless of how his children and his descendants will ever act, will be priests? To that he was very bothered with. To that his jealousy and his envy overcame, and he said, okay, Moses, I'll give it to you. You worked for it. You qualify. And maybe even your brother qualifies for it. Maybe even. But for his descendants who have not even been born, to say they qualify forevermore, regardless of the way they act to be priests, that he has an objection for. That was his side. So his side was, number one, he was hurt that he was overlooked, that the baby cousin was given the task of being the leader of their tribe. And now the Zera Shimshon tells us something new. His issue was, why was Aaron so meritorious to receive an everlasting, unworked for blessing for his descendants? To that we answer, first of all, Moses didn't choose. It was God. God himself did it. God told Moses to choose and elect exactly who for what. All of the heads of tribes, the spies even though it was against the will of God, and who's Kohen, and who's this, and the exact location of each of the tribes when they split up, north, south, east, west, when they were traveling. What people forgot, specifically Korach, was that Moses was making no decisions by himself. The Talmud actually counts a few of them, and most of them which God agreed with. And to this, Korach made a tremendous mistake. His sin was not against Moses or Aharon or his little cousin El Tzafan. It was against God. That's why his punishment was so severe. Although it looked like the rebellion was against Moses, but it was really against God, because he was denying the fact that God appointed Moses as the leader, as the prophet, and that he was just a messenger on behalf of God. If we continue, we look at a fascinating story, a famous story many of us heard, of the wife of On ben Pelet. On ben Pelet, as we saw in the first verse in this week's Torah portion, was one of the instigators. Again, Korach, Datan, Aviram, and this individual named On. On actually was not swallowed up by the earth, by the ground, like the rest of them were. Only the 253 were. Where's Mr. 254, Mr. On? Talmud in Masechet Sanhedrin tells us a fascinating story. It's actually explaining a verse in Mishlei in Shlomo's wisdom, how he compares two women. Compares the wife of Korach to the wife of On. The wife of Korach actually instigated him to say, look at your cousin. He's taking all the fame, all the honor. He's giving it to his brother. He skipped over to your little baby cousin. Already we know from many thousands of years ago, it is the woman who makes a man, or unfortunately the woman who breaks the man. And that is exactly what Shlomo HaMelech was telling us, and so is the Talmud. That Korach's wife broke him and led him to his failure. And Korach per se wasn't even such a nasty guy. But his wife was egging him on and on and on and on. Woman, at the end of the day, decides. She has the key. She lets the man put on the show. She's controlling with a little remote control. It's for sure, that's the way it is. Or as we all know the famous saying, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. She gets to decide which way he goes, what he does. So she can decide and turn him the wrong way like Korach's wife did. To Korach, who we can all maybe even say he was an innocent individual. But On, who maybe wasn't so innocent, he fell to the trap of Korach. His wife put him back on track. So what did she do? She says the Talmud says that she spoke to her husband. Told him, what do you have to gain? Put it this way. If best case scenario, your campaign wins, you know who's elected as president, as king? It's Korach anyways. You're still going to be number 2 or number whatever. And if Moses stays and Korach loses, well, you lose. And you're still not the leader. And maybe you won't even be around anymore. So she's telling him, you're not winning anyways. What are you getting in the middle of this for? Trying to knock some sense into him. Like every woman tries to do to her husband. So you know what he says? He says, you know what, you're right. At least he was mature enough to tell his wife the magic words, you're right, honey. But he had an issue. He said, I already gave my word to Korach that I am part of his rebellion. So she said, don't worry. She says, our verse, Kulam kedoshim. Don't worry, God is amongst everybody. Come, let's go home. I'll take care of it for you. You know what she did? Served him a glass of wine, drank, fell asleep, but the story doesn't end there. He fell asleep right at the time of the revolt, and they came coming looking for him. Datan, Aviram, the 250 men, Korach himself. You know what happened? She put herself by the door of their tent. She took off her head covering. She sat at the door. Anybody that came saw that she wasn't dressed properly. They ran away, one by one, each and every person that came. And through that, she saved her husband from dying and being swallowed up by the earth, just like the rest of the rebellion was. She saved On's life by doing what she did. So, beautiful story. The Maharsha on the Talmud, one of the commentaries on the Talmud, he asks, how did she know that by sitting by the door of their tent and taking off her head covering, she would save her husband and scare everyone who would come to try to fetch him? So what? So her hair's uncovered. They walk right by her. No problem. He's bothered with how was she so confident that her plan and her tactic would be fruitful. So the Zera Shimshon says, I'm going to answer the Maharsha's question, but I'm going to answer it with another commentary's interpretation on something similar, the Kli Yakar. So the Maharsha is a commentary on the Talmud. The Kli Yakar is a commentary on the Chumash. The Kli Yakar says, continues with the Talmud. When he quotes this part of Talmud on his commentary, he continues, and the Talmud says that after Moses hears the Jewish people say our line of Rav lachem ki chol ha'edah kedoshim uftocham Hashem, and why are you madua titnasu, and why are you raising yourself above everybody? You're not greater than anybody else. When Moses heard, the Talmud says, these words, Moses fell on the floor, put his face to the ground, and he started crying. Started crying to Hashem. He says, Hashem, what are they accusing me of? Why? So Korach says, what's he being accused of? Talmud actually answers and says, they came and they accused him for immoral behavior, for doing things which are inappropriate with women. Can you imagine? This is what the rebellion, look how far they got. Talmud says this is why Moses' face fell to the ground and he was crying and he was sad that he was convicted by mistake and suspected for something he never did. So the Korach says, how did Moses understand from the words of Kol Kehal Hashem Kedoshim, everyone's Kadosh, and why are you raising yourself? How did he understand from those words that people were suspecting him for immorality? So the Korach says, the word and the reason why they said everybody's Kadosh, and why are you raising yourself? Alluding to everybody's Kadosh and holy, but you, Moses, you aren't. And then the Torah tells us, back in the book of Shemot, that Moses took the Ohel Moed, his tent, outside of the camp. So no one would ever think that in the camp he's doing anything. He removed himself and he was secluded completely alone, so no one would ever suspect him of any immorality. So, still, what does the word holiness and kadosh ever mean and have to allude to you not being holy and being suspected for immoral relations? Or better, what does the Torah say? It says, Umadua titnasi'u al kal Hashem. Why are you being arrogant? Why are you raising yourself above everybody? Who are you? And from that, he learns that people are suspecting for immorality. So listen to what the Korach answers. The Korach says, Talmud and Masechet Sotah says, be very careful for arrogance, because arrogance is so powerful that it could eventually lead somebody to commit immoral crimes, specifically immorality. And because of that, the Korach says, Moses made a connection. They're claiming that I am arrogant. They claim that I'm exalting myself when I'm just fulfilling the will of God, the word of God. And because they came and said this, now they're either already or going to start suspecting me for committing immoral behavior. And that's why he moves his tent. Comes the Zera Shimshon and explains. He says, you know what? On's wife was so smart and so on the ball. She said they suspected him, and they're claiming and they're accusing Moses for immorality, for inyane kedusha, for things that have to do with holiness. Anyone who accuses somebody about something is always very careful to check that they cannot be accused upon the same thing. So if I sit by the door and uncover my hair, whether they really are always so diligent to not look at a woman who covers her hair when it's uncovered, here they're going to be. Because their whole war against Moses is, he's immoral. So what are they going to do? They're going to act as most careful as possible in the laws of immorality. So if they see a woman changing by the front door, they're going to quickly run away. They wouldn't want to be caught. Whether they're always like that or not, it doesn't matter. But in the moment of the rebellion, their claim was Moses was immoral. They'd be super careful about that. And she knew that psychology of the individual, to be very careful on what you're blaming others on, not to ever expose yourself in that same realm. And that's what her amazing wisdom, I would almost say divine wisdom, superhuman wisdom, was in her tactic of sitting by the door and uncovering her hair. To this we learn a lot of things. First and foremost is the bina yetira of a woman. The superhuman foresight of a woman. A woman can build, a woman can destroy. A woman can raise healthy, confident, happy, successful children, or produce the opposite. As men, we definitely have an impact on our children, and we have to always make it a positive one. But women are so much more powerful in those realms. Women are able to make their men do anything. If they were very, very, very observant and religious, they could pull them and make them not. If they're very, 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 very anti-Torah, well, they could pull them too. Whatever she wants, she gets. So, as men, we need to always pray to either find a good wife, or with the wife that we already have, that Hashem put in her always the best decisions and the best for us for our growth. And as women, we have to know how strong our power really is in building, or God forbid, destructing. And that's with family, that's with your spouse, that's with your children, that's with your friends, that's in a community, that's in the world. Women are builders. Women are builders. Women are the strongest. Again, they let the men are the puppet. But who is the puppeteer? The woman. Kadosh Baruch Hu. But the woman, you have the power. As women, build your husbands, build your children, build your friends, build your community, because you have it in you. And it would be so a shame to not use those amazing powers that God gifted you.